So Chanukah Sameach, Happy Chanukah. We are in Ruth chapter 4, Pasuk Yudalid, 14. Where are we? So we had the wedding of Ruth and Boaz, and Ruth and Boaz were married for a little less than 24 hours. Right after the wedding, they went to his house, and they had a relationship. She became pregnant, and he promptly passed away. And she carried the child to term for 271 days, which is 9 months and a day, exactly full. So she gave birth after Herayon days. The numerical value of Herayon is 271. And she gave birth to a son. And she was alone, obviously not, can imagine, not that happy, not all that cheerful on the one hand, and very happy on the other hand, very conflicted.
Does she inherit Boaz's?
Yes, she inherited everything that Boaz had. Actually, his son inherited. The little boy inherited. Yeah, actually no. I think, you know what? I'm not sure. I have to
because Boaz supposedly had no heirs.
Yeah. Boaz had no other heirs, and I have to.
So was she any better off?
Was she any better off? Yeah, I think she was. I think, yeah,
financially.
Definitely. Financially, for sure, because he gave her a generous ksuba, and she, after he passed away, she got a ksuba, and it's very, I don't know what he wrote in the ksuba, but I imagine that he wrote more than what she came with, and she's. I'm certain that she was way better off now.
Oh, okay.
Who exactly inherited? The laws of inheritance are a little tricky, and I'm not sure the son inherited because he was not in the world. He wasn't born when Boaz passed away. Anyway. So, Vatomarna Hanashim El Naomi. So the women, and it doesn't say who, just women in general, the ladies that were helping her, the maids, the midwives, the neighbors, whoever they were. So they told Naomi. They were talking to Naomi. They were not talking to Ruth. Ruth just gave birth. So now they're communicating with Naomi primarily here in the next few psukim, which is interesting, but we'll see why. Baruch Hashem asher lo ishbit lach goel hayom. Thank God, who did not. How did it translate? That did not. Lo ishbit, did not leave you without a redeemer. That was a electricity out something. Yeah. It was electricity popped. One of the transformers outside. Vayikra shmo b'Yisrael. So the women were talking, and they were basically saying two things. They were saying Baruch Hashem, and the rabbis are teaching us that they are essentially saying Baruch Dayan Emet. They're blessed who God who left Ruth and Naomi without Boaz. They were mourning on the one hand. On the other hand, they were marveling at the kid that came about. Lach goel hayom, the words lach goel hayom, the ends with the letters Mem Lamed Chaf. If you go backwards, right? Mem Lamed Chaf, which is Melech, which is the future king of Israel, came from that little boy chick who was just born. And V'yikare Shmo B'Yisrael. Now, we'll talk about V'yikare Shmo B'Yisrael in a little bit. Let's concentrate for now on the words Lo Ishbit Lach, Asher Lo Ishbit Lach. They gave a very interesting blessing to Naomi and to Ruth about this kid, that God did not leave you without a redeemer. Now, the reason I was struggling with the word Ishbit, because it's from the word Shabbat. Shabbat is not coming from the word living for you. It's did not prevent. Lashbit is to prevent, is to stop. Lishbot Shabbat, we're stopping from working, right? So lashbit means to stop. That God didn't stop your Redeemer. What does it mean? What do those words mean? That it didn't stop your Redeemer.
You weren't left with.
So what?
You weren't left without a Redeemer.
Right, but it's a Redeemer was just born. So the rabbis are telling us a very interesting story that is starting today with the birth of this child, but continuing for 500 more years. 500 years later, it was after the kingdom of Israel was split to two different kingdoms, kingdom of Israel and kingdom of Judah, and they had two lines of kings. King number 7, 8, or 9. Around there, in Judah it was king number 6, and I think in Israel it was king number 7 or 8. So there was in Judah the king was Yehoshaphat, and he had a son called Yoram. And the king on the Israel side, and in the Israel kingdom, was Achav. Now Achav was a big sinner, did a lot of trouble to the Jews. A lot because he got married to a queen of Tzol, a Lebanese queen, princess. Her name was Isabel. And she brought all of their ways to the house of Achav, and as a result, to the kingdom of Israel. All of the idol worship, the Baal, and because she was basically not Jewish, she was really creating a lot of problems for the Jewish faith, for the Jewish people. Her end was not. Did
she convert?
I don't think so, and I don't know how much it was worth. But let's leave Isabel. We'll get to her in Melachim at one point. They had 3 children. Achaziah was the oldest. Then they had a girl called Ataliah. And then they had another boy. The king of Israel, Achav, wanted to create a coalition. That's why he married the Lebanese queen. He also tried to create a coalition and to incorporate it into his coalition the kingdom of Judah, and hoping that eventually they will re-merge and maybe he will take over the entire. In order to accomplish that, he offered his daughter Ataliah to marry the son of Yehoshaphat, Yoram. It was a big wedding. Yoram and Ataliah got married, and Yoram became the king. Eventually, when his father Yehoshaphat died, he became the king. And then he didn't rule for a long time, and then he passed away. And then his son, they had Ataliah and Yoram had a son. His name was Achaziah. Now it's very confusing because she also had a brother Achaziah. Because we were talking about 2 lines of kings that are coming from the same people, same names. You have many uncles and aunts and, different lines with different names. So Achaziah, the son of Athaliah, after Yoram passed away, he was the king of Judah, right? She was the queen of Judah. So Achaziah became the king. He ruled for a few months, and then he was not in the influence. His mother, Athaliah, had a lot of influence from his mother, her mother, Isabel. And she was not, she influenced her son, Achaziah. And he wasn't doing the right thing in the eyes of God, and he tripped on something, on some sort of a low fence in the palace, and died. So now, who is the next king? He had a baby boy called Yoash. The baby boy was a real baby. Athaliah decided that this is her time to make the move to become the queen. And she killed all of the family of Yehoshaphat, whoever was left, all of the lineage of David, she killed them all with one exception, in order to capture the kingdom. The only one that she was not able to kill was the little baby Yoash, who was snuck out. They stole him and they hid him somewhere, and they hid him until he was 7, at which point they all wore these yellow vests, and they started riots, and they got him to, and they basically, it's the first...
Are you talking about Paris?
Very similar, exactly. She was the first and only queen of Judah, from the lineage of David. She was the only one that got, it tells us in the Tanakh that the people, Amei Haaretz, the crowd, the radical, the common, they all revolted, and they all removed her and installed her son. She was killed by them, and installed her son Yoash, who grew up to be a good king, a king that did a lot of good things. In any event, how she tried to eradicate the lineage of David, and the only reason she was not successful in killing all of the descendants of David HaMelech is because of this blessing. That's what the rabbis tells us, that he didn't stop, lo hishbit, it will not stop. There will be time in the future that stop will be in the cards, but it will not stop. And then it says, V'yikaresh mo b'Yisrael. Now, V'yikaresh mo b'Yisrael is a phrase that we all familiar with when we go to a bris, right? So we learn until now many different customs that are that we use in our weddings, from the book of from Megillat Ruth, from the way Boaz was treating Ruth. Now we're moving up to the next event, to the bris, V'yikaresh mo b'Yisrael. So whenever we and for a girl too, when we give a name for a girl, when the father goes up to the Torah, gets an aliyah, says V'yikaresh ma b'Yisrael. Now what does he mean V'yikaresh mo b'Yisrael? That her name will be amongst the people of, right, amongst us, but that's not really it. That's a misnomer. What it is, we are blessing the child, that the child is going to be so righteous and so good and so special that other people, other Jews, are going to call their children after this newborn. That's V'yikaresh mo b'Yisrael. So that's why it says here V'yikaresh mo b'Yisrael, and it doesn't say the name. We're using that phrase to call the name of the boy or girl now, but with the announcement of the name, we also are embedding a bracha in it, that may this child be so righteous that he will merit other people calling their children after.
May his name be famous, it says.
may his name be famous, so other Jews will call after him.
So when we say Yikara Vahem Shemi, now Malach HaGoel Ozi, isn't that for this? When we say in Bereshit, Malach HaGoel Ozi Yikara,
יברך את אברהם ויקרא שם אבותיו אברהם יצחק ויתגו לרוב בקרב. Yeah, so
we already have the rule of the Yikara Vahem Shemi.
yeah, but not be Israel. This phrase ויקרא שמו בישראל is not. It's from here. That's the only place it's written. Over there it's just ויקרא שמו. אברהם, you know, ויקרא שמי ושם. Yeah, so that's the name of God. ויקרא בהם שמי ושם. That's the name of God. That's different. This is where we have a lot of names that have like Yirmiyahu, Yeshaya, Chizkiah. It's all Yud-K at the end, that this is the name of God. Anyway. והיה לך למשיב נפש ולכלכל את צוותך, כי כלתך אשר אהבתך אהבתך ילדתו אשר היא טובה לך משבעה בנים. So, and the women, the neighbors, continue to bless Naomi and tell her that this boy, this baby, is going to be bring your soul back, which is a phrase that we use very much now. You know, when someone is thirsty, and I need something to lashiv et nafshi, to revive myself. So you drink water. Lashiv nefesh. It's a very strong blessing. So on the surface is, you know, got a new baby. She's very old. She suffered a lot of hardship and a lot of losses. And this child is bringing her back to life. One explanation. That's the simple one. Then we said that when someone is meyabem, someone is taking a widow, married her, and have a child, the soul of one of the deceased husband is coming back, right, into and so that's one option. And then a kid that the father dies before the kid is born is also many times considered that the soul of the father came back within that child. So you would have some people that are called Avraham ben Avraham, you know, they're not Gerim, but you know they have, especially in Israel, when you have young soldiers who go to war while the wife is pregnant and they died. So you have several of those, and so. But here the name is not being called after Boaz and not being called after Machlon, right? Those are the two options. Because if you do one, you'll diss the other, right? So they took a middle road, a third name, Oved, which we'll see, which is not either one of them. But nonetheless, it's a return of a soul. Which one we're not sure, but it's a return of a soul back from the dead. And so this child is going to do that, number one. Number two is also lechalkel et tzevatech, is also going to sustain you in your old age, was told to Naomi. Now, another, just before we continue, another explanation to Meshiv Nefesh, which will come back shortly in a few psukim in a very interesting way. What is Meshiv Nefesh? Is bringing back the soul. Who's going to bring back the soul? Mashiach. When Mashiach comes, there will be the resurrection of the dead, and all of those people who passed away will come back. Who was just born now? The great-grandfather of Mashiach. So he is the one that's going to Meshiv Nefesh. He's going to be the one who returned all of the souls, not only to you, but to all Am Yisrael. Now, ולכלכל את צוותך, so this person is going to be that, is going to start the chain that will bring Mashiach, and is also going to sustain you. How come he's going to sustain you? She's not really a grandmother, Naomi. She's a great aunt, right? She's related very, but how, she's not blood. The kid is not hers. So how come this kid is going to take care of Naomi? The neighbor says, the women says, Ki kalatech asher after, because your daughter-in-law loved you so much, she gave birth to him. And that love that she has to you, this kid has in the milk. This kid has in his DNA, in his blood. And therefore, he's going to love you as well, and he's going to take care of you like a son. And then, this is a famous pasuk, Asher hi tova lach mishiva banim. She's better for you, she's good for you from 7 sons. What is the 7 sons? She just said 2. She had Machlon and Kilyon, right? What is the 7 sons? So the 7 sons are, when we later on in a few psukim going to start enumerating all of the ancestors of Oved, of this boy. So Boaz is number 7 to Peretz. Peretz is the son of Judah, the son of Jacob, right? So Judah had a relationship with Tamar, with his daughter-in-law, who was not successful of bringing children with 2 of his children, Judah's children, right? And so he didn't want to give her the 3rd one, afraid that she would also, kick the bucket. So he left her unmarried, but she knew that she has to help this family, that it's going to come from her. The continuation of the family, of the line, will come from her. So she maneuvered Yehuda to have a relationship with him, and in those days it was allowed before the Torah was given, right? And she gave birth to twins, to Zerach and Peretz. And Peretz was the first one in line for Mashiach, for the king for the chain of David HaMelech. So Peretz was the first one, and we'll see the lineage a little later. And number 7 was Boaz. And Boaz had 60 children, and they all passed away because he did something wrong in his young age. I thought 60. He had a lot of children, and they all died. And that almost was the end of the line. And then came Ruth to the rescue, and so she made it good. After 7 sons, she came to save the day, and continued the 8th.
So Ruth
Yep.
was a Moabite, and Tamar was an Abdullamite.
No,
What was
No,
she?
no. She was a Canaanite.
Just a
of some-
Canaanite.
Yeah. She was not. Adulami was the friend of
It
Judah.
was Adullam, it was the friend.
The friend,
So I'm
yeah.
trying to remember what she was. So she was just a Canaan. So they both were non-Jewish.
They were both right. They were both coming from not Jewish lineage. Correct.
Did Tamar marry Judah after she gave birth, after she got pregnant? Or did he give her his son?
No. They didn't give her a son. No, I don't think I don't think so.
Took her into the house,
He
right?
took her into the house, I think, but he took care of her. But I don't think they had much to do with each other. Other words, as husband and wife. I don't think so.
Wait, who was that?
Tamar.
Yehuda and Tamar. I have to check to tell you the truth.
She became Jewish, though.
Yeah. They all converted, right? Anyway, so after the support of the women, ותיקח נעמי את הילד ותשיתהו בחיקה ותהי לו לאומנת. So this is where you learn how to deal with a child. Usually, when when there is a baby born, right? And you take a nanny. Omenet is a nanny, essentially, someone who raises the children. So most of the time, the child is spending in the crib. But here, she made sure to hold him most of the time. She planted him in her hands, and she was holding the baby all the time, because of the love, because of the, it was a lot of, lift her life up in many, many ways, and she felt the love of her daughter-in-law, so she gave back the love to the kid. It was a love fest, so she basically raised him with a lot of muscle in her hand.
So when it says that she became his nurse, it doesn't mean that she nursed him.
It's not nurse. Omenet is not nurse.
What's an omenet?
Is somebody who a nanny.
Took care of nanny. Okay.
Yeah, someone
And
who
here it
raises.
uses the word nurse.
She was not a nurse. No.
It says, according to somebody, it says that she did.
Okay, possible.
Miraculously enabled to
I
nurse
stand
Yeah.
correct. Anyway, but one of the miracles that
It's a
happened.
miracle there.
One of the miracles that happened before is that Naomi was not able to have a child. She was not. She was barren, but she was really missing some organs that are necessary for that to happen. Yeah, and it was a whole miracle that God made that happen. Anyway, so Vatikrana lo hashchenot shem. So. It says before Ve'ikaresh Shmo B'Yisrael, and it doesn't say what his name was, right? So it's possible that they gave him another. There's those who say that they gave him another name, and now this is a second name. But according to most, they just basically called him after Naomi, for as a, like Naomi's son, because she was holding him all the time. She was taking care of him. So in order to make sure that she feels part of it, they called him Naomi's son, but they call him also a name. Vatikranu lo hashchenot shem, and le'emor yulad ben leNaomi. This is a son that was born to Naomi. Again, bringing back the soul of her child Machlon, of her son Machlon. Vatikrana shmo Oved hu avi Isha avi David. So they called him Oved. They called him Oved in order because they wanted him to be, they wanted to bless him to be Oved Hashem, worshipper of God, and they didn't really feel like calling him after Machlon, the name of Machlon, because he was not really an outstanding citizen, which we learn from it till this very day, that when we call a name after, a child after someone, we try to call after someone who was, righteous person, not necessarily.
You wouldn't call him Asa.
Yeah, Asa, a serial killer. It's not a good name. And then once we arrived at here, this should be the end of the Megillah, right? Because we know the whole. But the point is that we started. The whole reason of writing this Megillah was who wrote it? Shmuel, right? Shmuel, the prophet Shmuel wrote it. When did he write it? He wrote it at the end of his life, after he sort of retired, and he wrote it in order to make sure that no one has question about the validity of David HaMelech. That that he's the chosen one, he's right, and nobody should say he came from an Ammonite, a Moabite, and all kinds of stories. So he wrote this whole book for that purpose. So now to summarize it, to sum it up, and to increase the validity of David, he goes back and say all of those other righteous men were the source of David HaMelech. David was the 10th from Peretz. Boaz was number 7, and then you had 3 more, Oved, Yishai, and David. So David was number 10. So ve'ele toldot paretz. So these are, so he's starting from the son of Yehuda, which we mentioned before, Peretz, and then mention his name in them, Peretz olid et Chetzron. Now, we see in those psukim, and we're going to read all of the psukim except the last one, because the official siyum we're going to do next week, when we're going to have a little bit, a little bit of a siyum party, and we're going to also start the book of Shmuel Aleph, God willing. And I calculated based on the pace that we finish this. It will take us about 6 years to finish the book of Shmuel, so brace yourself.
Okay.
We'll get a lot of donuts, for 6 years. We get 6 years to life. What? But God willing, we'll get there.
Got something better to do?
We'll get there.
Tuesday night, I don't know what's that.
So in those last few psukim, we're mentioning all of those 7 ancestors, or the 10 ancestors of David HaMelech, and each one of them, his name is mentioned twice. In the Torah, there is a rule: a name that's mentioned once, it's usually someone who's not going to be admitted to Olam Haba. It's not someone who's going to have a nice front row seat in Gan Eden. And those who are mentioned twice, at least twice, it's to signify that they're righteous. So here it says Peretz olid Peretz olid Chetzron olid, etc. So they all are mentioned twice. Now, there is a very interesting midrash. There are the word toldot, annals, the son of, the people of, right? Toldot, mentioned in many places in the Torah and in the Tanakh in general, including we have a parashat Toldot, right? In each and every one of them, it's written Toldot without the second vav. Oh, the first vav. Without the first vav. Toldot chaser. There are only 2 that are mentioned that has 2 of them, and that is ve'ele toldot hashamayim ve'haaretz. In the beginning of in creation, right after God created all of after the 6th day of creation, after Shabbos, Elo toldot shamayim va'aretz. So God created, is mentioning the toldot of the world, and here Elo toldot Peretz. So what's the reason? And in Peretz, actually toldot Peretz, when in Parashat Vayeshev, I think. Now, what is the reason for it? The reason for it is as follows, very interesting. In the world, we have death. Because we got punished. The Adam and Chava were punished in Gan Eden, and they were and Malach HaMavet was introduced to the world, and now there is death, and because there is death in the world, you cannot really say with full mouth, these are the toldot, these are the descendants, these are the how do you say toldot in English, for God's sake? Annals? Generations. These are the generations, maybe, I don't know. These are the generations of the world, because there is death in the world, so it's missing. So that's why it's always written without a vav. Except those 2. One of them is before Chet Etzadat. Ele toldot hashamayim va'aretz, right after creation on the 6th day, before Shabbos, before things went wrong. So Malach HaMavet was not here, so he was able to say Toldot with the full mouth, with all letters written. Toldot Peretz is because Peretz is the one that's going to bring Mashiach, who again is going to resurrect the dead, which means is going to send Malach HaMavet on vacation forever, on retirement. And again, there ain't going to be death in the world. So those are the 2 that has Toldot fully written with the Vav. Okay, so ואלה תולדות פרץ, פרץ הוליד את חצרון, right? וחצרון הוליד את רם, ורם הוליד את עמינדב, ועמינדב הוליד את נחשון, ונחשון הוליד את סלמה, Salma is, even though his name was Salmon, really, Salma is, they want to mention the name Shlomo here as well, because it's written without the dots, without the nikud. So, just to mention the name of Shlomo. By the way, Salmon olided Boaz, Boaz olided Oved, and the last pasuk we're going to read next time. And we have a few more minutes, and I wanted to talk about Chanukah and the connection of Megillat Ruth and Chanukah. Any ideas?
I've been looking all week.
What?
I've been looking all week.
And?
Trying to figure it out.
Any
I
ideas?
was trying to see if there was genealogy or
Genealogy,
something
no.
coming.
All right. So,
Something about a Shemitah. I saw something about something with the grain, the type
The
of
grain.
grain from Shavuos, but then it can go till December, till Hanukkah. Till
all right. There are several. There is a strong connection in the Haftarot, which we'll talk in a second if we have a moment. But the main thing is as follows. If you recall, when we were discussing the conversion of Ruth, from those psukim, the couple of psukim, and maybe a pasuk and a half maybe, when Ruth was converting, from that we learn in Masechet Yevamot, there is a whole discussion about the process of conversion. What exactly you need to tell the convert, prospectus convert, what to do and what is going to happen, and tell them, until now you were able to drive on Shabbos, and now you're going to be killed if you're going to drive on Shabbos, etc. And there are a few select mitzvahs that are being mentioned. One central mitzvah that's being mentioned is Yichud. When Naomi told Ruth that until now you were able to be as a woman, alone with a man, and it's no problem. There is no law in Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach. There is no law against it. But now that you are converting or about to convert, please know that you cannot be alone with a man, which is not your husband, alone. In order to maintain the sanctity of the Jewish people, this kind of behavior is not allowed. Let's fast forward to the story of Chanukah. The story of Chanukah, as we all know it, and there is one small detail that not everybody knows fully, and that's the story of Yehudit. The story of Yehudit. What was going on with Yehudit? And there are a couple of versions of the story. We'll stick to one common one. The Romans were disallowing us to do certain mitzvahs.
Greeks.
The Greeks were disallowing us to do certain mitzvahs. And one of the things that they tried to do is to take the life, the juice, the holiness from us. They said, it's okay if you keep mitzvot, but not because it's godly mitzvot. If you understand them, it's okay. But to keep the mitzvot, chukei retzonecha, because God said, that's no. The holiness, the sanctity of it, that they didn't like. One thing that they did is they imposed a terrible custom on Jewish weddings. Before every wedding, the first night, before the virgin woman is released to the husband, she has to spend the night with the governor, the Hegmon, the local governor.
Braveheart.
What?
It's like the story Braveheart.
The Braveheart copied that story, of course, and since then it was a very common corrupt way to take the life out of people that that you conquer, and the point is to really they couldn't sing kol sason v'kol simcha kol chatan v'kol kala either, because it just happened the wife was just raped, or in order not to publish the fact that they're going to get married and do it in quietly in secrecy, but they had a lot of Judenrat, people who are helping them and snitching. So it was very difficult not to be found that someone got married. And some girls didn't want to get married because of that. The story in the Gemara goes as follows: that when Yehudit, she was the daughter of Yochanan HaKohen. Some say that she was it's a granddaughter of Matityahu or daughter of Matityahu or whatever. It was related over there. She was taken to her wedding, to the chuppah, in this special, apirion, in a special procession, and she was led to be raped by the local governor, and she couldn't stand it, and she wouldn't stand for it, and she tore her clothes, totally star naked, and stood over there. So people got, what's going on? And they wanted to punish her for doing such a. So she told them, "You want to punish me for being naked in front of men while you leading me to be raped? How dare you? Where is your priorities? What's going on here?" And with that, they went in and they took her and they helped her, and so the story goes that she ended up killing that hegemon. She ended up killing that governor. She fed him. She like Yael, she gave him milk, warm milk. That's why it's accustomed to eat milk products on Chanukah. Latkes with a little bit of sauerkraut. Yeah.
So where's the applesauce?
So the applesauce, that's for those who are worried about the calories.
That's
Those are lactose intolerant. Those are lactose intolerance. That's what it is.
So Yehudit was the one who started it all, because after that they decided, you know what, this is really not right, and Matityahu rose and killed the soldier who told him to bow to the idol in the center, in the plaza of Modi'in, in the center of town. That's what started it all. Now, because the whole nest of Chanukah came about because of a woman, because of Yehudit, even though according to the dry law, women are not obligated. We're not obligated. We're not supposed to be obligated to light Hanukkah candles. Because they caused it all, they are obligated to do Hanukkah candles, and even more than the men in that they are not allowed to do any melacha, anything, any work while the candles are lit. In the first half an hour, they're not supposed to cook. The first half an hour. So they're not supposed to prepare or cook or do anything. They're supposed to sit and listen to the candles. And what are we listening to? When we're sitting around the candles, what are we listening to? So we're listening to the following point. The law is that if there are 3 mitzvahs that we're supposed to give our life for and not do, which is Giloi Harot, Shfichut Damim, and Avodah Zarah, right? But other mitzvot like Brit Milah, like Shabbat, we're not obligated to give our life. If someone is coming to you with a gun and say, drive on Shabbos, so I'm going to kill you. Okay, so I'll drive on Shabbos and I'll live. That's the halacha. There is, of course, this the rule that if we are being forced to do something in the name for the principle of it, for the principle of going against the Torah, so then we're not supposed to we're supposed to kill ourselves on any mitzvah. But one thing that we were not obligated to do is that to go to war. It's okay, individuals that are being told, Michal Shabbos, because the king said so. Okay, because they're not supposed to. The king is saying it in order. The Caesar is saying it in order to go against Torah. So we have to give our life, but we're not supposed to go to war. That's a whole different level of giving our lives. It's a whole, it's much more dangerous. So also later on, after the war occurred, we had the situation with the oil, and the oil we found only one oil which is pure, and we used it until we produced new pure oil. And the question is, why did we need that? It's a famous question. You allowed when all of the Jews are not pure, you can use it, no problem. So why did we have to? So the answer is that because the Jewish girls, the Jewish women, were so rose up, and in order to keep the sanctity of the Jewish family, the sanctity of the nation, they did something which didn't make sense. They were ready to give their lives. God pay us in kind with something that didn't make sense. That didn't really follow logic. Doesn't really follow the halachic logic. You don't really need to have pure oil, but it's above and beyond. God made a miracle in order to repay the girls of Israel for what they did, and also the win, the victory in the war also was done in such a way which is above and beyond any logic. You had so few soldiers and no weapons, and we won against the mightiest army of the world at the time. It's all in order to pay that. And what the Rebbe said that in 1952 in a special gathering of a wedding, and he said that this is what we need to learn from it. When we sit in front of the candles and we're listening to what the candles are telling us, we should listen to that story. We should listen to the understand. We should understand that for the sanctity of the Jewish people, you have to go without reason, above and beyond, not just do the minimum necessary, but just go all the way without question. And God willing, God is going to repay us in a whole different way. If it's like you're winning a lottery. And this is exactly the story of Ruth. This is exactly the story of Ruth. And Ruth gave her life and gave her all future. And for a while she suffered mightily over there in order to build the house of David.
Sure.